you there? I'm not sure.
So I think maybe if you could just click on the Notion page. I think while we wait for Dapline, I'd like to just run through, I think, some of the things that, and if you could zoom in, I think it'd be really good. Okay. So I think just a quick catch up for everybody. I think this week we are officially kicking off the sort of withdrawal. Oh, you're here. Okay, awesome. Okay. But I think just sticking to the withdrawals contract, I think Dapline actually sat down with, I think now we actually have a somewhat internal core devs team of myself, Philippe, and Sung Hui, who's working on documentation and meets each day. And we're starting to work on these sort of withdrawals, hard fork in earnest. So hopefully things will be less haphazard as it was for the merge. So I think Dapline sat down with us and we've enumerated all the different tasks that are needed, both from a technical standpoint as well as an operational standpoint. So I think just starting off, I think the specs are more or less done. After this topic, I think Martin had some thoughts on the GNO token behavior, which we'll go into. The withdrawals contracts are more or less finished. I think Ihor, after this, we can go into that in detail. And the client implementations, and I think the DevOps team with Giacomo is starting to work on a lot of the DevNet tooling. And we would like to work with, I think, the MetaMind team and the other core devs a little bit more to build, I think, an extensible test tooling framework to be able to spin up DevNets for whichever hard fork comes in the future, so that it's less messy as it was in the past. There's some operational tasks about just topping up the withdrawals contract to ensure that there's sufficient GNO that we have to take from the treasury. There's the stuff around testing where we need a bit of clarity on whether there needs to be additional post-out tests and also tests specifically for withdrawals for the insolvency case, so on and so forth. So I think Dapline can elaborate on this later. And I think the comms team is also with us on this call. They'll be starting to really work on the validator relations to make sure that we don't have a participation issue like we had in the past. So I think for this, I also just wanted to, I think, also just explain how it's going to be run. Philippe, who will be leading a lot of these calls, will actually be I think helping Dapline to play the sort of coordination role on the operational side, as well as comm side. And I think it's in this safe hands that he'll be running a lot of these sort of errandish tasks behind the scenes. One thing that we'd like to do is to actually have an internal talk, perhaps just to internal Gnosis DAO participants within about 2 weeks, and then within 4 weeks also be able to do more public comms, because people are also wondering how withdrawals would work, not just for Gnosis, but also for Ethereum. And I think over the next few weeks, we'll be pinging a lot of you to get details to actually put this talk together to be approachable by both, I think, normal retail users as well as more technical engineers who would be very interested in the underlying implementation of how it's different from Ethereum. Yeah, so I think this is just the big picture for the withdrawals. I think a few things that we just wanted to ask the team for was any guidance if we're missing out on critical tasks that really need to be done, or there are other things that we should be doing that we should build out the capabilities for. Cool, that's awesome. Yeah, so I think that's the first part. Yeah, so maybe Ihor, if you want to jump into the updates for the smart contracts.
Sure. Hi guys. So I have created a PR with, I hope, at least semi-final implementation of withdrawal smart contract using the API that was described in withdrawal specs. So you can find it. Let me share the link if you are interested. Inputs are welcome. Yep, and as I know, Martin suggested to discuss maybe this way I implemented it. It's not the right one, so that's also an important topic for today, I think. That's all.
All right, I guess linked to the withdrawal contract is kind of the conversation about GNO. So we had a quick conversation about this internally with Martin, who suggested 4 no, sorry, 3 options, I think, or 2 options to of how to move forward with GNO. So let me just read this for context, I guess. So right now we have GNO on Ethereum with a total supply of 10 million, 7 of which are theoretically burned. The contract is not upgradable. And yeah, the tokens can't be burned because they are vested till until 2025. Sorry. Yeah. So the idea maybe Martin could elaborate a bit better.
Sure. I mean, I can happily comment. So I mean, essentially, we have this transition period or kind of thing where GNO plays a critical role on Gnosis Chain, but well, as it stands right now, it comes kind of the original or the canonical GNO is the GNO on Ethereum, and I feel like kind of at this moment where we kind of need to touch things anyhow. So kind of with the withdrawal contract, it's pretty clear we need to, well, there is the hard fork required. I was wondering if we already should use this hard fork to really kind of, bring GNO home in a way, or kind of make GNO native to Gnosis Chain, and kind of, get rid of this kind of dependency on bridging GNO from Ethereum. Kind of just logically, I mean, I feel like it's not a great situation that that the consensus of the chain is at danger if the bridge would malfunction, or even kind of if there would be a bug or an issue with Gnosis DAO that kind of controls those 7 million GNO that are supposed to be burned but not really burned, and so on. So yeah, I made a proposal here to say we essentially use this withdrawal moment where we need to do a hard fork anyhow to kind of flip the idea of right now. Right now, Gnosis is originated on Ethereum and kind of bridged to Gnosis Chain, but instead we mentally flip it and say kind of kind of GNO is original on Gnosis Chain, and the GNO that's on Ethereum and that will continuously also be on Ethereum is essentially bridged from we say, or we see it as bridged from Gnosis to Ethereum and not the other way around. What this practically would mean is that we would limit, or essentially right now on the Gnosis Chain side of things, there's no limitation of how much GNO can be bridged from Ethereum. So in theory, like let's say in theory on Ethereum there's a bug or whatever, there's a bug on the GNO contract on Ethereum, and you can mint unlimited GNO on Ethereum, or of course probably more likely there's a bug in the bridge. Unlimited GNO could be minted on Gnosis, and of course that puts the whole chain at then the chain is really messed up or kind of broken beyond repair. So the idea would be to say we mint the full amount of all GNO that kind of exists, and that's only 3 million. We mint the full, or kind of there are, I think right now 367,000 GNO already bridged to Gnosis. So what we could do is we could mint the remaining roughly 2.6 million something on Gnosis Chain, but then after that removes the ability of the bridge to mint more, and basically just say kind of if assets come from Ethereum, then kind of this fixed amount is used. So the bridge can't mint GNO anymore, but the withdraw contract or the withdraw functionality could still mint, because I don't have a strong opinion about that, but I mean, I think we should kind of go close to how Ethereum works, and in Ethereum, well, obviously, kind of the withdrawal mechanism can essentially mint new Ether. So I feel like if the withdrawal mechanism on Gnosis Chain can also mint new GNO, that would just only be the logical equivalent. And I honestly, I haven't looked deep into kind of what you had been working on, but just kind of from points I saw, that insolvency edge case, I'm not sure we need that if we just say kind of the withdraw mechanism can mint. But then again, I also would say, I mean, that was high level kind of to me what makes sense. I would also say if it turns out that all of that is, well, too complex or can't be done, then I think we should also consider kind of just going with a simplified version for now and kind of maybe doing this later. Can someone comment on how this is different from, or kind of maybe contrast this versus, or first, is it clear what I described?
Yep, it's definitely clear, but I should raise my point that I was describing previously in chat, that I think potentially that can lead to very bad like economical effect and like community effect if we will like just say that the token that was our native token that like many topic changes integrated will not be like as available as it was. And the second moment, I think that will be easier to implement, at least from the point of view of withdrawal smart contract, because we do not will need it. We can just like increase the corresponding balance of GNO token on Gnosis chain at the for the corresponding address. No, like execution layer logic should be implemented in this case for withdrawals.
Sorry, I think that it was. I'm trying to understand the first point, so let's do one by one. The first point are concerns. In my view, we are just making the system more strict. So essentially, we are removing the ability of the bridge to mint unlimited GNO on Gnosis Chain. So I don't see that anyone kind of could be harmed by this. I think it's only it only increases security.
Probably.
I wouldn't really see kind of whom we are. I mean, again, the only scenario where so again we have the situation that 7 million GNO on Ethereum are in this kind of vesting contract, and they are supposed to be burned, but kind of factually they are not burned. They also cannot be burned. I mean, I think the part that is vested, those we could actually burn by just sending them to the zero address. But the part that is not vested, we can't burn. So it's only kind of a promise that we will burn them once they are vested. I think all we are doing is, or I think in my view, all we are doing with this, or what we would be doing is kind of putting this promise in code, essentially, of reducing, of kind of reduce the supply on Ethereum. 2-3 million from 10. Maybe now the second topic was how is it currently planned to kind of, or what is the insolvency case, or how is it currently planned to release GNO that is essentially minted or that is essentially generated through rewards on the beacon chain? What's currently the plan for that?
If you mention the topics that I raised, I mean that for now we will not need any withdrawal logic on execution layer, because like from the block building layer we can just increase the corresponding slot in the GNO smart contract storage. So I mean just take the corresponding slot in smart contract storage that corresponds to some special account that should receive withdrawn GNO, and just increase that balance. No, that's just an option. I mean.
I mean that is. I mean that's essentially minting new GNO, or no?
Yeah, but definitely. But we expected to do this using execution layer when like we have system transaction to the execution layer, and this transaction is allowed to like withdraw some GNO from the deposit contract, and probably like wrap or unwrap or do some other logic.
But wait, if you wanna do anything, wanna write to a slot or something, all the block building is regardless happening on the execution layer. So it doesn't add a new transaction, true, but it still has to be done on the execution layer, because consensus layer has no idea about slots and EVM memory layout or anything.
So just to make that clear, how would you update those slots when doing a withdrawal? Like, what would be the code doing this? Would this require some change in the execution layer?
Yep, I think you're right. If like block building consensus layer does not know anything about execution logic, about slot calculation of the slots, that definitely should be done on execution layer. Yeah.
I mean, can someone explain how it's done for Ethereum? Because in my view, we should simply try to make it as similar as possible to how it's done on Ethereum.
I suppose they are just increasing the balance,
Exactly.
the ETH balance, which is not
Yeah,
the
the
special
increasing
location in
balances,
contract. Yeah,
Withdrawals?
the-
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
A balance increase, simple. Mhm.
Yeah, it basically gets a kind of push notification, if you want, from the consensus layer to increase a certain balance, and that's basically. And since balances are totally separate thing in execution layer, then it's easier.
It is very similar to block rewards, I would say. Just increase the balance.
Okay, and you're saying kind of. I mean, in principle, I think the same message or the same push notification. I mean, I guess could be used to increase GNO balances, but I guess that's much more, or it's more difficult, I guess, because obviously it's kind of touching storage at some contract instead of.
Yes, so the
Yeah.
idea was, instead of like hacking it in code, to do it explicitly by calling a contract that would do it. That was the whole
I see.
idea.
Yeah, no, I think that does make sense for sure.
A silly clarification on my part. I understand in Ethereum, there are 16 withdrawals per proposed block. And there are also people with, OX 0x0 addresses and 0x01, I think, withdrawal credentials. Is there any need to communicate with the community to add withdrawal addresses?
Yeah, so the 0x0 won't be able to withdraw. So you need to convert your address if you want to be able to withdraw.
Follow-up question. Is there any tooling that we need to build ahead of time? Because it does seem that a lot, I mean, just from looking at the block rewards, there are a lot of people who just don't have addresses configured or made mistakes in the setup process. Are there tools available, and do we need to adapt them for Gnosis Chain?
Not sure if
I
there
think
is
Prisms have something, if I'm not mistaken.
The question is if there is any difference in this process for Gnosis and
Should
main
not be.
Ethereum. Yeah.
If we don't touch the consensus layer in regards to withdrawals, so there is no difference.
And the only thing is that Prism is not like a supported client. So, but I guess that probably not only Prism added this tooling.
Yeah, I have like because I didn't look into how technically does the conversion work on the Ethereum side, because I know that the withdrawal credentials, they're basically like built into the contract, the deposit contract on Ethereum. So how does the conversion work? And then it's some other place that they are stored override or something.
I'm not sure if I will be able to answer it correctly, but for sure we will find it in this document, so we can just just verify it.
I think maybe just a point of feedback. I think I only found out about this because I was listening to a podcast on withdrawals. Is there anywhere with, I think, the spec, including the part about only 16 validators can withdraw per block? Because very likely we will have people withdrawing, and I think comms needs to reassure them that, hey, I withdrew, but why don't I see it? And it could be that they're in the queue and they can only withdraw it like 2 hours later or something.
Sorry, not sure if I get you correctly. Do you want to increase this value for Gnosis?
Oh, no, I was just checking whether that was still true. So my naive understanding is that only 16 validators can make a withdrawal per block.
Yes.
I see. So if there are a lot, and right now, because we have almost 100,000 validators, let's say if there's a bunch of people withdrawing all at once Shanghai hits, there could be like a backlog which leads to 2 or 3 or 4 hour wait before they get their withdrawals out. Is that the correct instinct? I see.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think
even it is a longer process because partial withdrawals are automated, and so you will wait more time. I think it is something around 2 days.
Got it.
Yeah, but doesn't the block time for Gnosis Chain being 5 seconds affect this?
Yeah. So it will be reduced.
Yeah, so 2 days on Ethereum will be like a little bit less than a day on Gnosis Chain.
And we have less validators on Gnosis Chain, so it will be even faster.
Okay, I just took a look at how the change of credentials happening in the document. It looks like it's just we need to send just a JSON into a consensus layer, right? It's it does change it, and I don't think it's at least in the JSON itself. It seems like it's just from BLS to ETH1 address. I don't think anything was changed in this regard on the Gnosis chain. So in theory, somebody should try it, but I don't see why it should be different for Gnosis chain than for Ethereum, to be honest. Just one note there was that this operation might not be supported on some clients before Capella is activated. So the communication needs to be very careful there. Then, because if somebody runs Teco, for instance, they won't be able to convert credentials until the hard fork happens on the consensus layer. Capella is activated.
So to kind of circle back to the canonical GNO, who would take a decision regarding that? How would it work with bridges, all of that? Who can answer these kind of questions, I guess?
I think let's take this discussion back, because I think Martin, I think it has to be across bridges as well as core devs. I think it's just good for this session. I think we floated the dot balloon up, so that everybody's sort of aware of how we are thinking. I think we can follow up on the back end and next week present I think more fleshed out proposal, including what's possible and what's not possible, because I think this would need to change the bridges as well. So yeah, I think just reading up, I think Debline had a comment actually on the 16 on the validated withdrawals. Should we close that up first?
Right. So I haven't had time to read this. I just know Debline just asked me to bring this up. Can you comment on it, maybe, Debline?
Yes. How is my quality going?
It's fine.
Am I lagging? Am I good? Awesome. Yeah. So sorry. So for the multiple paying thing. So regarding Martin's proposal, I think it's solid and should be studied, but it's definitely not at the point that it can be included in a fork. So I think this feels kind of like the Shatterage Beacon chain, where I would like someone to take a good research idea into a solid research idea that could be considered for inclusion. So if there is an interest to have that should happen the fork significantly. Then regarding the constant for the block, I think we should have it toned down to a level that makes sense. If EL devs can do benchmarks, that will be great, because the cost of the withdrawal would be more expensive in Gnosis than here. And unless we want to have crazy UX where people can withdraw instantly for the partial withdrawals, I don't see a reason to have that much faster. And then for the thing you're highlighting, what exactly should I comment on? Hey, Philip.
Sorry, I didn't. What did you say? Sorry.
Yeah, that you prompted me to comment on this PR, and I missed exactly what you wanted me to comment on.
All right. Well, you just wrote on Telegram to bring something up regarding this pull request. This comment specifically you posted here. That's just maybe elaborate on that.
Yeah, so this is a question for also execution level devs. So the current design is that we want for the system transaction to clear pending failed withdrawals. So if there is a backlog that builds up, the system transaction should clear that backlog. The question is how many should it process? How many failed withdrawals should it process per system transaction, such that block processing times are still in a bound that we are comfortable with, but that the queue can be clear in a timely fashion. So I don't really have a good number in mind. I could make one up. So this is why I think having benchmarks of the cost of this and what's the block processing time of a block that has to clear, say, 16, 30, 32, 64, 100, 200, 500 looks like, and then we can do a decision. And the last question is, should the number of retried failed withdrawals be hard-coded in the contract, or should that be a chain parameter? If Ruben or Jorge, you want to comment? Yeah.
Actually, I got a question regarding the failed withdrawal concept. What do we mean by failed withdrawal? Like, what first time they are failed and they arrive later for reprocessing? How is that gonna work?
Yeah. So the mechanism on the system transaction, the withdrawals that are part of that specific block would be passed as call data to the contract. The contract will try to execute them. If it fails, then the only possible reason is because there is no GNO left on the account, so the transfer fails. Then that withdrawal would be stored in the contract state as a failed withdrawal, and then it will be retried later.
Later with the next block, with the next 16 withdrawals.
So yeah, they will be retried, I think, every block, and until they succeed.
But CL will send us again these withdrawals.
No, I think we're
No,
expected to just call the process fail withdrawal, like in addition to the processing the regular withdrawals.
Yeah, so we'll have say
okay.
16 and plus something there, and that's why probably that one
Okay.
asking for
Got
the
it.
limit of failed withdrawals. Okay, to not put the stress on the EL client, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a good point.
So it would be saved in the contract itself.
Yeah, in contract storage.
Okay. Could that potentially bloat the contract storage or the contract execution next block, like the gas requirements?
No, because the number of retries is bounded.
I mean, my take is clearly we should never have that situation, and we it's not clear to me that we should. Or if I understand correctly, the idea is this is manually funded as a contract, and therefore it could, in theory, be not funded, or what's the thing? Why would it fail?
So in reality, it could fail for a variety of reasons because the contract calls an external contract and it could revert for whatever reason. Because the RC20 that will be connected would be whitelisted by us and would be specifically the GNO representation in the Gnosis chain of the token. The only possible failure mode is if the source account doesn't have balance. So that's why it's called the insolvency case, meaning that the deposit contract doesn't hold enough GNO to make everyone whole.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that goes back to the discussion whether there should be, kind of minting or no. But yeah, I certainly feel.
But if you mint, then you move that problem to the bridge, and it feels way uglier.
No. Well, I mean, that. Well, what I was proposing in my proposal was to say there is no minting of the bridge anymore, but there is a minting by the system contract or by this kind of withdrawal mechanism. So this simply this so essentially kind of creating a transfer that never fails. But of course, yeah.
Yeah, I see the appeal, but that has a lot of unknowns. So definitely it's a path that should be studied. But yeah, until all the unknowns are resolved, it's not viable.
Just out of curiosity, is there a way, in core dev work to actually have two native tokens, like just having two state trees in the system?
Sorry, to have two stake tokens?
two state trees. So one that represents the XDAI balances, and then we have another one which represents GNO. So that's not like a ERC20 registry or something. It's at the system level.
In execution layer or consensus layer?
That's a good question. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just bringing it up as an exploratory idea.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, like in execution, you can do that, but by like yeah, you can create an account that, let's say, you can have like a balance and then balance GNO properties or whatever. But, that requires also it's like makes the execution layer a bit different from what Ethereum has, so more maintenance. So it's, I mean, it's software. A lot of things could be done, but the question is how, like the cost of doing this and the cost of supporting this change long term. Like you remember
Makes sense.
for the L2 discussion, Alexei, that's exactly what Alexei was proposing for L2. Just to have multiple native tokens. And yeah.
Oh, I think we can invalidate that. Yeah.
I feel like I feel like kind of if we go this route of minting the it's essentially having if you require a fork anyhow, I feel like we can have a system contract that has a GNO balance of essentially an unlimited GNO balance or a very extremely high GNO balance, so that that it should never fail to or at least not for the balance reason be okay. Kind of the insolvency case, we can rule that out, but also happy to kind of I think if people feel like that should be taken into another round of chain or kind of discussions outside of this call, then of course it's fine.
Yeah, so I think we should move in that direction for sure, but I'm not. Yeah, again, like this has to be planned up quickly, and as Ihor mentioned, this has huge impacts in anyone that uses outside of the chain. Well, and also in on chain, I don't. Has that been done before? Like that's a pretty drastic change.
What do you see as a drastic change?
Well, I guess Tezos did that, right? Like they did the ICO in Ethereum and then they moved into their own chain.
Oh, that you mean? I mean, well, there are plenty. I think I mean, Binance, BNB certainly did it. I think there are plenty. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Then I lack expertise on that realm. So if you can get someone to draft something up of how that the mechanics will look like, then can be considered for the fork.
Guillaume, I think you.
Yeah, just thinking about what I think that was Ihor saying. Having two balances, theoretically, so yeah, having two balances, one in GNO, one in XDAI, I think is not a great idea, in the sense that that would be very, I mean, that would be a huge change in the tree structure. Like you cannot really have two trees. I mean, you could, but yeah, it's going to cause some issues because you have a contract. You don't know if one of your trees has a storage hash that is not empty, and the other one is. You could resolve which one has priority, but yeah, basically the problem is figuring out which storage belongs to which account. My question was more, could we get rid of DAI? Like, I'm not saying I have a complete plan in my head, in fact, but the question, I'm just trying to assess if it's worth thinking about it. Basically saying at some point, XDAI was great, but it served its purpose. Now we replace it with some mechanism I don't have in mind yet. We replace it with the equivalent in GNO and be done with this. And so that this way we can implement the standard, I mean, the Ethereum version of withdrawals and be done with that.
Yeah, in my view, there are two kind of things to discuss here. One is like purely all technical things aside, kind of just from a whatever economic or whatever perspective, is this good for the chain? And then of course the second thing is how would it technically then work? But already on the first part, I see. I mean, already for the things I suggested, there was the comment that that might be, or kind of that this might be, well, affect users and so on. I think, in my view, kind of the thing that I suggested affect users are very, very little, but this would, of course, affect users kind of dramatically, because we would kind of force them to essentially put their dollars into GNO, and I can't really see how we can do that. I mean, essentially how we, I mean, not technically, but kind of how there can be a because there is, yeah, I mean, there is XDAI, of course, but then there's rept. I mean, there's rept XDAI, and kind of it's in all kind of contracts. Rept XDAI is used, and in DeFi contracts and so on, and kind of in all places people assume it's $1, or kind of it's something that represents $1. So I feel like changing XDAI to something that's maybe not dependent on DAI, and maybe, or more importantly, that's maybe not dependent on a bridge, that I could see. So kind of say we have some stablecoin native on Gnosis, that's kind of natively created or minted on Gnosis. That I could totally see that we could kind of, again, not from a technical perspective, but from a whatever chain social perspective, that I could absolutely see us doing. But kind of forcing people from holding dollars to now holding volatile GNO, I have a hard time seeing that.
So sorry, I lost track then. So what are we debating? What are we trying to solve? What was the problem?
Well, I mean, kind of the problem is, I mean, like technically, it would be easier if GNO would simply be the equivalent to ETH. So, I mean, essentially, we wouldn't have a.
What's the point of debating it? It isn't, and we don't want to do that, right? That's what you said right now.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the question was, should we strive to kind of, I mean, right now we have XDAI and GNO, and should we strive to bring it together? And I was just kind of trying to make the point.
I don't think we should.
Yeah, I was also just trying to make this point that I don't see a viable path toward it.
Okay, and the other problem was that we are calling to withdraw contract, and it doesn't have GNO to withdraw. So right now GNO is locked somewhere, right? For the staking.
I mean, well,
GNO is locked in the MGNO wrapper, and then MGNO is locked in the deposit contract.
Okay, can we like?
And actual GNO is locked in the bridge.
Can we like release this when we do a withdrawal? Can we release this and then based on that add GNO to the when we are withdrawing? That makes sense for me.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Okay, so what's the problem then? I still don't see what we are debating. Like how we did. How did we get here?
Okay.
So the thing is that there is the chance that the deposit contract goes insolvent because it doesn't have the capacity to mint the value itself. It's actually minting on consensus. So on consensus, it explicitly says this value is created, rewarded for your service as a staker. But in theory, like in practice, it doesn't have access to that value. Someone from the DAO or someone with access to GNO capital has to manually provide that capital to the contract, and that kind of feels wrong. So that ties to the idea that the fact that the value that's securing the chain, it's foreign to the chain it's securing. So bringing the actual GNO token, like the canonical GNO token, to the Gnosis chain would allow for it to be minted, and then you will not have this problem.
Okay, could we automate that part when there's someone from the DAO needs to actually bring GNO to the withdrawal contact? Can we like automate it? Do it like...
Yeah, of course. I mean, in all practices, unless the whole Gnosis team disappears in a nuclear bomb attack for a year, like I think it's realistically impractical for the contract to be insolvent unless something incredibly drastic happens.
But then with this idea to switch the source of truth into the Gnosis chains, I mean, could it be just discussed with the DAO as well to see how community reacts if we care? Because I think typically it's, I mean, it resolves a lot of headaches, right? Because you can just do withdraw and mint or something, some function like this, and just you never get insolvent because you're just minting these rewards, like Ethereum does. But the problem is with the economical and community stuff. It's not technical. So
yeah, I think I should do a post of kind of just kind of describing high level the idea to say, well, switching the source of truth for GNO token to Gnosis Chain.
I think just because there's like 9 minutes left, there's got a few things. I think can we decouple? I think the withdrawals is really, I think, more, spec'd out, and I think Ihor and the others can really start working on it. And I think the canonical GNO will really need to, be decoupled and go through a governance vote. So I think let's decouple the discussion if that's possible, Martin. I think the client teams all need to give the updates as well.
Yeah, I want to quickly close this.
Right, so it doesn't have to happen at the same time as Shanghai Capella, right? It could be done half a year later because it's very unlikely that the contract will get insolvent.
I mean, if there is a chance for shit to happen, it will happen. So
yeah,
we should not rely on it.
We know exactly how much GNO could be withdrawn within the next, let's say, 4 months, because there is a limit on how many withdrawals per block, and it's the limit on how much rewards could be done there. So it's maybe somebody can just calculate it. It shouldn't be hard to see that we definitely have enough to cover that. And then, of course, it's basically we know if we add this much money into this GNO contract for how long it will stay, taking into account the maximum withdrawal activity.
And if we don't have it, it cannot be minted, right? In some way on the execution layer.
I mean, then the source of truth question is weird, right? If the source of truth is on Ethereum and we are minting something on Gnosis chain, it's that's why we discuss source of truth because if the source of truth is then no problem to me.
So for me, like at least when it has eventual consistency at some point, right, in some mechanism, then it's fine for it to be inconsistent for a short period of time, if it's guaranteed, right? But if it's not, then yeah, I get your point.
Well, also there's the point that taking this approach to infinity, the GNO will run out.
No, I think I like the idea of switching the source of truth and actually minting just like Ethereum does, in principle, right? But the question is, do we need to rush it, or can it be taken just during this year? Let's say. Not.
I don't see any reason to rush it, but I could be convinced otherwise.
If somebody can just do a quick back on the envelope calculation about how much GNO could be withdrawn within this year, basically after the withdrawal, so
the point is not withdrawals. Withdrawals are covered by the original deposit. The problem is with rewards, which
like,
I did the math, and it was like about 1.4 million in USD value. So unless the chain grows like crazy, we are perfectly safe, and I think the DAO has enough money to cover it for a long time.
Yeah, again, yeah, I mean, again, there are those 7 million that the DAO could still access. Again, it's the question is, and this would be, so, I mean, this would even be out in every worst case scenario, be even 100% of all GNO would be staked. That would, yeah, last for 50 plus years, or I think more. But again, that, yeah, is the question, should we actually touch those GNO that are supposed to be burned, or should we kind of just avoid this problem by changing the source of truth? And yeah, so I think we should do an assessment of what a timeline could be for this change of source of truth. If we can do it reasonably fast, then I think we don't need to think about edge cases. Even if we can do it just within a year, I think we can then still, yeah, kind of go with the intermediate solution as proposed, and make sure that in this time this problem cannot occur. Yeah.
But then again, it's a question of preparing the community to some extent. Like, because again, what's difficult? What's the technical difficulty of switching the source of truth? Just making sure that we mint enough things, enough GNO on Gnosis Chain to just have an exact equivalent. Is that basically the hard fork thingy? Yeah, right. Because we need to make sure that the amount of GNO is equal, and the rest is.
Okay, running out of time. Should we? I think we should pause this topic. Should we go quick updates from the teams, or?
One last thing from me. I don't know if it makes any sense because I'm really quite ignorant on how the bridges work. But what if we mint something on the execution layer on the Gnosis chain that then you can actually exchange through the bridge to your original GNO on the Ethereum network? That's what I kind of get. You don't get the GNO, you get something else that you exchange it, right? Some equivalent.
I mean, my proposal was that we mint in kind of on to change the source of truth to Gnosis Chain, mint enough on Gnosis Chain to cover everything that exists on Ethereum. But then, yeah, if you bridge back to Ethereum, you would still get the GNO token that people know today, but kind of just yeah, again, kind of just under the hood, the source of truth. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, let's move to updates because there's technically only 2 minutes left. So never mind. What are your updates?
We're gonna launch a testnet for us probably today or tomorrow to test our withdrawals code, and we updated the withdrawal code to reflect the changes with the function rename. That's it. I don't know. Do we have anything more? Perhaps not.
Yeah, this transaction pool issue will be released in 1.18, not in 1.17, because it's not critical. So from our experience, it is better to not add the last minute changes to the release. Yeah, and that's it.
Awesome. Aragon?
We are looking into Chado connectivity issues, and I think we found that Nethermind privileges Nethermind nodes. So we kind of have the situation when a new Aragon node is at block 0 in Chado, and Nethermind considers it's useless and drops it, but because it's not Nethermind. So that's if we can drop this. If we can remove this privileged behavior of Nethermind nodes and Nethermind, that would be great.
Well, I don't recall that feature, to be honest.
Well,
Yeah, there isn't any privileged. I don't know what you're saying, but we can take a look why it's being dropped.
Yes.
Maybe there is a other reason, like that's so we can drop on some any invalid message, or we can drop some peers when syncing when we consider them useless, right? For example, when we are syncing and we cannot sync from you. But overall, we don't discriminate any.
all right, so I'll try to get more details. It was another team member who was looking into it. So
so we have this quite interesting flag called what was it called in the networking? It was
network deactracer enabled.
Deactrace enabled. True, and it will log like all communication, and when it drops also. So it should like show you, for example, it sometimes shows interesting things like it drops after you send us this message, right? And you can deduct that, okay, maybe there's something wrong with this message, and we can look into it more, and vice versa. So yeah, there's some diagnostic. Oh, there's a chat.
okay, great. Yeah, we'll try that. Super.
We can probably try helping you with diagnosing that, but we do not discriminate anyone. But there are sometimes incompatibilities that result in disconnection that happens for us too.
Okay, I also have one update for Aragon that I've been working a bit on the light consensus layer. It's starting to sync now. It's not quite done yet, but maybe we're getting there soon. So yeah. All right, get team.
Yep, I haven't really worked on it this month. I'm tending to pull my days at the end of the month. It reduces the counter switches. I had a question that was not guest related though. So Prism has merged while we were in Australia. Prism has merged the changes. So Prism should be able to sync, and I wanted to know if someone had tried to use Prism on mainnet or even Shadow. I guess not. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's one extra thing for me to test next week. Yeah, that's it.
All right. I'll try to test this out a bit too, as I'm testing other clients at the moment. Okay, and then on the Nimbus side, there's a small update. I mean, it was already working. We have 6 validators online on mainnet and some on Chiado as well. I've published Docker images that contain the binary specifically for Gnosis because they require different build steps, so it's not the same binary for mainnet and Gnosis. However, those are, well, they're not really public yet in the sense that our users maybe should not use them yet. I wouldn't consider them stable. But we have deployed some nodes at Gnosis for Aragon, well, for the light consensus client. Oh yeah, why I meant it, maybe for the Aragon team, you mentioned that you don't consider it stable. Well, you don't consider Aragon stable for Gnosis yet. What would be the criteria for you to consider it stable?
Well, I think it's stable in more or less as a read-only node. So we're still, for validators, it might work fine. And I think somebody told that it was working fine, no problem. But it's still, I would treat it with caution. We need to run more tests and maybe optimize performance a little bit for the validator row.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there something we could help in that regard? I mean, the 6
You can
validators I have.
So maybe if you have a test net and you just have some validators and you preferably where the state is big, but run a population of validators with Aragon, and if you see any problems, any performance or issues or other bugs, then let me know. That would be very helpful.
Okay, well, the 6 validators I'm running with Nimbus are backed by Aragon, actually, and that has been running for 2-3 weeks now. I haven't seen any issues for now, so...
And is that a test net or
no, that's on mainnet.
Mainnet, okay, that's good. Maybe Aragon is stable, better than I hoped.
Well, I mean, we still see, again, we just sent it to Alexei last week or something, that on Ethereum, it still misses attestations, like,
yeah,
for us. So it's, I mean, it's not critical, you just don't get the best rewards ever, but it's still in high 80s, like, no worries, but it still misses more attestations than Geth and Nethermind, substantially more. If you look just at chart comparison, again, it's still like 12% sometimes, something, but it just gets stuck a little bit, then it works great, then it gets stuck sometimes, and yeah, so not for long. It doesn't get stuck for long. But,
yeah, so we should sort out that issue, but that's on the mainnet, and it might or might not happen on Gnosis Chain.
And it also depends on how many validators you run, because we run 70 on this particular node. That was experimental, like 72. But, we know that sometimes 20% of those validators just miss one attestation, and then they were okay. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's move to Gateway for the chain infra.
Yeah. So basically, I'll continue with Aragon as well. We've been running it in production for a long time on mainnet as an archival node. No problems there, apart from one. Just last weekend, we got it stuck again, and restart helped. So this time all the nodes were stuck on the same block number, which is probably something related to the reorg or something. But we enabled debug login on one of the nodes and trying to figure this out, because nothing weird is in the normal nodes, basically. So it happens rarely. So before that, it happened maybe like 3-4 weeks ago. So this could be happening, but the restart helps. And then again, apart from that, and figuring out the reorg kind of situation, we also right now handling, I don't know how many percent of Chiado and 5% of mainnet RPC flows from the main RPC. I think the test is going fine. I haven't seen any alarms. So on the archival, we are also supporting the Gold Sky to index the whole mainnet of Gnosis Chain, again, as a public good. And then, what else did we do this? There's something I'm forgetting, but overall, yeah, soon we'll switch into bridges on Chiado, because I think we migrated all the infrastructure to the state as we wanted it on Gnosis Chain. So that's about it.
Awesome. And I don't think there's anyone from the shutterized beacon chain or account abstraction here, right?
No, so I think it's just to let everyone know that these two things are currently ongoing. And I think sometime once they're a bit more fleshed out, they'll join Core Dev's call to just share on the progress.
Awesome. Well, then I guess if there's something else, let's wrap this up.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys, and see you.
Thanks. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.